Hey guys, welcome back. This is Anthony with Embrace Tutoring and Educational Services. Today we're going to be reviewing the SAT Practice Test 1, questions 31 through 38 within the fourth math section. Question 31 states, Wyatt can husk at least 12 dozen ears of corn per hour and at most 18 dozen ears of corn per hour. So here I see two different rates. So 12 dozen ears of corn per hour. So I'm going to put 12, I'm going to symbolize dozen by DZ here, and this is going to be per 1 hour. And I also see here that I have 18 dozen ears of corn, and this is also going to be over per 1 hour. It says, based on this information, what is a possible amount of time in hours that could take Wyatt to husk 12 dozen ears of corn? Well, what it's really asking you is, assuming that he can take at least 12 dozen ears of corn per hour, or at most 12 dozen ears of corn per hour. So here he's really moving. Here he's a little bit slower, right? At least 12 dozen ears of corn per hour, or at most 18 dozen ears of corn per hour. Well, what's the minimum and the maximum amount of time that it can take him? So you're going to have an at least value and an at most value. But the best way to solve this is still really the same methodology. I'm going to have 72 dozen here, and I'm also going to have 72 dozen here. And what you can tell is I'm setting up a proportion, right? I'm going to solve for X hours. And this is when his slower rate at 12 dozen ears of corn per hour, I would end up cross multiplying. And so I would do X times 12 dozen equals 1 hour times 72 dozen. And I'm going to end up getting 6 hours when I actually solve that through. Here, I'm going to do the same, where I'm going to have X number of hours to try and solve on the bottom. Right? I'm trying to solve the proportion of the ratio of this is what it is when he's 12 dozen ears of corn per hour, and here's when he's 18 dozen ears of corn per hour. Here's going to be 4 hours. Right? If I were to cross multiply 18 dozen times X hours equals 72 dozen times 1 hour. So here's my at most value, and here is my at least value. Now the question asks, based on this information, what is a possible amount of time in hours that it can take Wyatt to husk 72 dozen ears of corn? So I see here that the answer has to be between 4 hours and 6 hours, so I'm going to go with 5 hours. I feel is going to be my most straightforward answer. Okay, moving on. So problem 32 states, the posted weight limit for a covered wooden bridge in Pennsylvania is 6,000 pounds. A delivery truck that is carrying X identical boxes, each weighing 14 pounds, so every box is going to be 14 pounds in terms of weight, will pass over the bridge. If the combined weight of the empty delivery truck and its driver is 4,500 pounds. So notice here, the weight limit is 6,000 pounds of this bridge, and the truck is going to be driving over that bridge. The driver plus the truck is 4,500 pounds, and they're going to be carrying some sort of X number of boxes on them. So I know that let's say my limit, right, my limit of the actual bridge, it has to be less than 6,000 pounds. I know that my driver and my truck altogether is going to be 4,500 pounds. So this is including my driver, say, plus my truck here. And if I were to subtract these out, most likely they're going to ask me how many boxes can I fit within this amount of pounds. So I'm going to keep reading on just to kind of clarify. It says that the combined weight of the empty delivery truck and its driver is 4,500 pounds. What is the maximum possible value for X? Yes, right? Remember, X is representing how many boxes over here, and each box is 14 pounds. So they're saying how many boxes, right? X is the total number of boxes, each being 14 pounds, that you can fit within this truck that is currently a driver and a truck of 4,500 pounds, knowing that you only have 1,500 pounds remaining. So I'm going to take this value of 1,500 pounds and I'm going to divide it by 14, because that's going to give me the total amount of boxes that I can end up solving for, right? I have 1,500 pounds to work with. I'm going to divide it by 14 to try and figure out how many boxes can actually fit in terms of this truck. And what I'm going to end up getting when I plug this into my calculator is 107 0.1. Now, notice I have a 0.1 here. However, I don't really want to include this 0.1. So I'm trying to think of things in terms of a whole box, right? A complete box. I can't have a box with, half a box, so to speak. So I'm looking for complete boxes. So in this case, I'm actually going to round down, and I'm going to have 107 to be my total. For problem 33, I see the number of portable media players sold worldwide each year from 2006 to 2007. It says, according to the line graph above, the number of portable media players sold in 2008, okay, so I need to know that, and that's going to be this value here, right, is what fraction of the number sold in 2011. Okay, so I care about 2008, care about 2011, and it's asking me, is what fraction? So it's going to be one of these numbers over the other number. Now, I'm going to be 2008 over 2011, being that that's the fraction. Okay, 2008 over 2011. And that's my fraction here, if I were to, so I care about this data point for it being 2011, which is 160, right? And that's going to go on my denominator. And then I care about this data point, which is my 2008, which is 100, and that's going to go here within this denominator, and I'm sorry, within this numerator. So here 2011, 2008, and yeah, okay, so it's just simply asking me what fraction it is. Now, to quickly solve this out, I'm going to remove these zeros. I'm then simplifying this down to 10 over 16, and what I'm going to end up getting is 5 over 8 to be fully simplified. Okay, great job. Okay, question 34 is asking you, a local television station sells time slots for programs in 30-minute intervals. If the station operates 24 hours a day, every day of the week, what is the total number of 30-minute time slots the station can sell for Tuesday and Wednesday? So here I have 2 days. Right? Notice it's Tuesday and Wednesday, and as we previously discussed, the word "and" usually refers to the fact of addition. And it's asking me what is the total number of 30-minute time slots the station can sell for both. Well, you know that each time slot is equivalent to or equal to 30 minutes. And you should also be aware that 1 hour equals 2 times your 30-minute time slots. Right? That's how they're referring to it. Right? So 2 times your 30-minute time slots. So if I'm aware that 1 hour equals 2 times 30 minutes, and if I have 24 hours per day, then realistically I have 48 time slots per day, right? Per day. And I know that here that I'm also dealing with 2 days. So really this would be 48 times 2, which altogether would be a total of 96 time slots if I'm including the Tuesday plus the Wednesday. So 96 time slots is going to be your best possible answer. Question 35 is asking you, a dairy farmer uses a storage silo that is in the shape of a right circular cylinder above. If the volume of a silo is 72 cubic yards, what is the diameter? And so overall I want to try and figure out what the diameter is. Most likely I will need the radius of the base of the cylinder in yards. So of the base of the cylinder in yards. So I'm trying to figure out what is the diameter here of the base of this particular cylinder through the volume equation, right? And the specific equation I'm actually going to need to know is what is the volume of a cylinder, right, to be more precise. And I need to know that the volume of a cylinder equals pi r squared times h. My height here is in 8 yards. And you want to take a quick peek, just because here the fact that it's in yards, you want to make sure that they're asking for it in yards, which they are. So that way you don't have to do some sort of other unit conversion and actually take that number and convert it to feet. You then want to begin to plug this in, because the volume of the cylinder they give to you, or the volume of the silo, is going to be 72 pi equals pi r squared times 8. Now 8 is going to be referring to the height of the actual cylinder. Now I can divide both of these sides by what they have in common. Here I have a pi, and here I have an 8, which will therefore be able to go within the 72. So I'm going to take both sides, and the purpose of this is I want to try and isolate r. So I'm going to divide both sides by 8 as well as pi to try and isolate r. So I'm going to divide here by pi, and I'm going to divide here by 8. So I'm going to remove the pi, right? Pi over pi is, right, cancels out to be 1, and then 72 over 8 is going to equal 9. Now, when this is simplified, what I end up getting is 9 equals r squared. So if I were to take this, right, for both radicals here, right, then what I end up getting is 3 equals r. Now, this is great because I need to know what the actual diameter is. And what I need to be aware of is that 2r equals the actual diameter. Remember that radius is, right, from the origin or from the center point to an end point on the outside. But diameter is the full length of both. So this would be r, whereas diameter is asking for both, right, from end to end, so to speak. So I'm going to have to multiply this by 2 in order to actually get my diameter. Now my 2 times my r is just simply 2 times 3, and my overall diameter is going to be 6. Okay, question 36 is asking you if h of x equals this value here, and then it says for what value of x is the function h above undefined? Well, what you need to be aware of is that if something is undefined, that means that this bottom term here, or the denominator specifically, is actually going to equal to 0 in order for this entire function of h to be undefined. So that means that here, if I have x minus 5 squared plus 4x minus 5 plus 4, all of this would need to equal 0. Now I can solve for x because that's what it says, for what value of x. So here now, knowing that when this is undefined it's going to equal 0, I want to do my best to attempt to solve this through and isolate for x, or solve for x. Now if I have x minus 5 squared, I'm most likely going to want to FOIL that out. And then over here, I'm going to have my positive, I'm going to have my 4x, right? If I distribute this through, my 4 to the x, and then my 4 to the minus 5, so this is going to be minus 20. And then I'm going to have a like term over here, which is going to be plus 4 over 0. Now, let's do this. So if I have x minus 5, right? X minus 5, x minus 5. Now I'm going to FOIL this through. This is going to go x to x, so I'm going to end up having x squared. Then I'm going to do minus, let's say, 10x. I'm getting that 10x by doing my x to the minus 5, which is minus 5x, and then another, right, minus 5 times x. So I'm getting the first one here, I'm getting minus 5x. The second one here, I'm getting minus 5x. And then I'm getting minus 5 times minus 5, which I will end up getting positive 25. Okay, so I'm going to bring this other part down that I've already solved for, and I'm going to do plus 4x minus 20 plus 4. Let's attempt to simplify a little bit. Here I have x squared, and we're going to simplify by combining like terms. Here I have a 10x, here I have a 4x, here I have, I'll put different type of squiggle. Here's 20, here's a 4, here is 25. So I'm going to do my best to combine these like terms, right? And so I have x squared, right, minus 10x plus 4x. I'm going to have minus 6x. And then I'm going to take positive 25 minus 20 plus 4. And altogether, that will give me positive 9 equals 0, right? Bringing the 0 back down because technically everything has to be undefined. So now my new question is, what is x now having this new expression? Well, if I were to, right, FOIL this back, then I would have, right, x here, x here. Now what essentially would give me, right, a minus 6x in the middle and a 3 on the outside? Because this is positive and this is negative, that leads me to believe that I have 2 negative values here. And if I have 2 negative values, right, if this is meaning this negative is multiplied by that negative in order to get the positive. And if I have 2 negative values here, that means that this is most likely 3 and this is most likely 3, because it has to be this number multiplied by that number in order to give you a positive number. So I'm going to have x minus 3, and you can tell that this is going to be x minus 3 squared altogether. But remember, the question is asking you, what does this equal to, right, what is x minus 3, or what is the value of x when all of this is undefined, and it's going to be x equals positive 3. Okay, great job. Problem 37 is stating, Jessica opened a bank account that earns 2% interest compounded annually. And remember that when we're saying it's compounded annually, that means that this 2% interest is being added, right? So it's going up every year, right? Compounded annually means that it's being increased. So you would have something that, right, you have your 100% normally, which is your original, right, your original value, but then your 2% interest annually would get added to that year after year. It says her initial deposit was $100, and she uses the expression 100 to the x to the power of t to find the value of the account after t years. So this is representing the amount of years. This is representing most likely her compounded interest, or the rate at which her interest is increasing. And this is representing her original value, right? 100 of the original value, since her initial deposit was 100, just to find the value of account for t years. What is the value of x in the expression? Oh, okay. Well, if I have $100 and x is going to be my $100 is going to be in my initial, but then I know that's going to be going to the power of t within the years. What they're going to want to know is, how does that represent the 2% rate increase going year after year as represented by t? Well, it's just simply, what is 2%, right, of 100%, and you're going to be adding that as a reflection. So it's going to be 102% compared to the original value, right? It's going to be 102%, and this would be reflective within 1.02, as if you would be multiplying the 100 year after year, depending upon what year that she's in, right, by the 1.02. And the 2 being greater than 100 or being greater than 1 is reflecting that it's increasing and not decreasing. So her actual expression would be written 100, 1.02, right, to the power of t, and 100 or 1.02 is going to be your answer for this question. So you're going to want to put 1.02 within your bubble sheet. We're almost there. Problem 38. Jessica's friend Tyshawn found an account that earns 2.5% interest compounded annually. So if you remember, Jessica had 2%, but Tyshawn now found 2.5% interest compounded annually. Tyshawn made an initial deposit of $100, similar to Jessica above, into this account at the same time Jessica made a deposit of $100. They're probably going to ask us to compare the two, given the fact that so many similarities are at play. It says, after 10 years, how much more money will Tyshawn's initial deposit have earned than Jessica's initial deposit? So we're going to want to solve both of these through using the previous equation above, which was, let's write over here a little bit more space. So here I have $100 because that's both of their initial deposits, and I'm going to be using the previous equation of x to the power of t, and remember, x is the compound interest. So if I have, let's say, Tyshawn, right, write this out, and then I'm also going to have Jessica over here. Now, Tyshawn, if we go back to the problem, made an initial deposit of 100. Okay, as did Jessica, also made an initial deposit of 100. I'm doing this together to make sure that things are just complete. And I know that Tyshawn earns an interest of 2.5% interest compounded annually. Now, if this is 2.5% interest compounded annually, then he is going to have his x is going to be the 100% of the original value plus the 2.5%. which this, when written in decimal form, would actually come out to be 1.025, whereas Jessica's above, for what we previously had shown, is 1.02, right? So his is going to be 1.025, and hers is 1.02 because of the 2% interest before, right? 100%, but every single year she gets another 2% added to it. That's where the 1.02 is coming from. So here it's also going to be after 10 years for both, right? So here I see After 10 years, how much more money will Tyshawn's initial deposit have earned than Jessica's initial deposit? So we should expect Tyshawn's to be higher, which does make sense given the 0.25 versus the 1.02. If I were to plug these into my calculator, and quick tip, if you are plugging this into your calculator to save a little bit of time, it might be easier for you just to do 1.025 first with the caret sign with the 10, okay, to take that to the power. Now, when plugging this into my calculator, I do get 128.009. And I know I'm going to want to solve for the difference between these, so I'm just going to put a minus sign now because it tells me here how much more money will Tyshawn's initial deposit have earned than Jessica's initial deposit. So I'm really looking for the difference between them. And I have 128.009 minus, now let's solve for Jessica's, 100, right? 1.02 to the power of 10. One more time, 1.02 to the power of 10. I now solve for this value, then multiply it by 100. If I plug that in my calculator, I'm going to end up getting 121 point, let's say roughly around, right around 121.89. Now I'm going to take the difference between these, so equals 128.009 minus 121.89. Now I'm going to get somewhere in the ballpark of 6.11. So that is what my complete answer is going to be based upon the difference of how much more Tyshawn is earning compared to Jessica based upon his 2.5% interest compared to her 2% interest. Okay, guys, great job. You're more than welcome to reach out if you need anything. Make sure to stay tuned for future videos. We'll make sure to update the resources as well as additional practice tests and quizzes at www.embracetutoring.com.